Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another very cool brand new release from Lulu's Customs and Classics. This time we've got ourselves the Stegoceratops, and this is the first time that I can recall anybody making a more realistic version of this hybrid dinosaur. Of course, we have the version from Hasbro, but I can't really recall anybody else making one outside of the film You're the Hunter from the Future, because there is one that actually shows up in that movie, and that movie's from way back in the 80s. But when it comes to figures or models, there are only the Hasbro version and now this version to my knowledge, and it looks so cool. It's just really nice to have a more high quality model-like version of a Stegoceratops, and for some reason I've always just been a fan of this. I don't know why. Like, this hybrid dinosaur was just something that I always enjoyed, probably because I was such a huge fan of that film You're the Hunter from the Future. When I was younger, I used to really love that movie. I still do, actually, but I mean, like, I used to watch it a lot when I was younger, and the fact that there is in fact a Stegoceratops that appears in that film always kind of, made me enjoy this dinosaur, I think, more because of that. And the fact that we now have a really cool looking version from Lulu's Customs and Classics, in my opinion, is definitely a great thing. So as always, let's go ahead and jump straight to a closer look at it, and we'll check it out from there. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Stegoceratops, you can see it looks really nice. There's also a lot of beautiful skin texture and fine detail up here in the face. You can see it's very fine in some areas, but you can pick up on like the cracks and crevices of the skin texture. Even up here into the beak, you can see all that, crack and crevice type of a look that you would expect to see. You can also see the nostrils are sculpted and highlighted with a darker tone. We can see that we've got the eye in here, and there's also a nice gloss coat there shining on the eye. Of course, there's a good bit of variation of color that we see here in the face. You could see light variations of greens as well as browns, numerous different variations of browns. Looks like we even have like a tan, sort of like maybe that was the base coat for the figure, which you can kind of see shining through in a few areas. Some nice skin wrinkling here moving along the jawline, which also looks nice. Darker brown for the beak as well. And as you move up into the frill, you can see that we've got variations of browns as well as that light tan that I was just speaking of. You could see right here in the center of the frill. You can also see some scoots moving down the center of the frill right there. The horns look pretty good. They look very honestly Pseudoceratops-like, which is exactly the way that they should look. We can also see that the horns are sculpted nicely if my camera would focus on them. Again, there's a darker tone that kind of transitions to a lighter variation of brown as you move out there toward the tips. You see nice curvatures to the horns as well. We have the spikes moving along the outer edge of the frill, and you can see those as well are painted nicely with a lighter tone. Same deal as the scoots moving up the center of the frill. As you move back into the body, you can see that we pick up some osteoderms here on the side of the dinosaur. They're also highlighted with that lighter tone, but we continue to have the mixtures of greens and browns as you move through the course of the figure. Again, when you get nice and close, you can see that very nice looking skin texture, almost like elephant-like skin texture moving through the figure. You can see that there's also some bumpy osteoderm-like scales kind of leading off of the back of the elbow. You can see the muscle definition. As you move down into the foot sculpt, you can see some scoots moving down the toes, as well as, again, some nicely sculpted nails. And you can see there's even like some reddish browns that have been applied to the nails, and honestly certain areas of the figure as a whole. You can see the entire underside has that reddish brown sort of a look to it. But as you move back up, you can see a few kind of skin wrinkles and folds right there in the stomach region. Again, tons of osteoderms as you move through the course of the figure. Up here you've got the muscle definition here in the back of the thigh. Again, you can see the very nicely sculpted skin texture, and we've of course got the knee here in the front, the calf muscle as you move down, and again the foot sculpt looks really nice on the back leg just like it did on the front leg. The dinosaur primarily, you can see, is in just a neutral position. It's not really like running or walking or doing much of anything, just kind of standing here. And then as you lead out here toward the tail, of course, you can see a beautiful curve to the tail. As you lead out, you've got the thagomizers out here on the end of the tail, and you can see again they start out with a darker tone, transition to a lighter tone as you lead out toward the tips, and the entire tail, like the entire tip of the tail in general, kind of has a darker tone to it. And then as you lead along the upper part of the dinosaur, you can see we of course have the plates, something you definitely would expect to see on a Stegoceratops, and you can see that the plates also sport some nice detailing, nice kind of cracks and crevices. If you look up here, you have a greenish tone kind of following along the spinal column of our Stegoceratops. If you look at it from the opposing side, you're of course not going to see a whole lot of difference because the figure, like I said, is in kind of a neutral position, which I do like because it almost gives it that kind of like maquette type of a look. You know, something you see quite often when it comes to maquettes that you see used in the Jurassic franchise, but also the way that the old Toyway Walking with Dinosaurs figures looked, where they had that kind of neutral pose. So I really like that. And again, you can see all of the same type of sculpt and detail, all of the same type of coloration as you move through. Really nice greenish tones that definitely shine and mesh with the brownish tones of the body quite nicely. Again, you can see the detailing up there in the plates. It all looks super, super cool. The entire underside, of course, has that kind of reddish brown tone of color down there. So definitely hyped to have a very nicely done version of a Stegoceratops now in my collection. Now here's where things get a little funky for me, because this figure is actually a pre-production sample. So this is not the correct size for this dinosaur. He basically allowed me early access to one of these again at a smaller size, and the actual size of the official release will be, you know, pretty big compared to this one. At least it's similar in size, I think, to like a Mattel Ceratopsian. This one is much smaller, so I don't think we really need to measure the figure or do size comparisons or anything like that quite yet, because it really isn't going to serve us much of a purpose, because this isn't the size of the final product. So when I do get my hands on the final product and I do put a review up for that, I will of course give you a size comparison and or a few size comparisons and measurements and all that stuff then. But I really don't think it's going to do much good with this particular review. So this Stegoceratops from Lulu's Customs and Classics is super, super cool. It is a very nicely sculpted figure. As you move through the course of the body, you can see even little things that I'm now noticing just kind of looking at it, like the rib cage shining in the stomach region and stuff. I didn't even notice that when we were taking a closer look at it. And I also like the fact that he's kind of meshed the Stegosaurus with the Triceratops so nicely, because you have the osteoderm-like look that you often see on Triceratops in the Jurassic franchise showing up here on this version. So like that's just like almost a nice little throwback to the actual Jurassic Park style Triceratops, but I always felt it looked more like a Nasutoceratops mixed with a Stegosaurus rather than a Triceratops, but whatever. But you can see again as you move through, you have that pretty much, in my opinion, perfect resemblance to the way that the dinosaur looks like when you see any sort of artwork for it and stuff, and even compared to the old Hasbro version, which this is far better than that. But I feel like he absolutely captured the likeness of the dinosaur quite perfectly. And on top of that, he's given it a good bit of variation of color as you move through the course of the figure. There is a lot going on when it comes to the different tones of browns and greens that he has used. And of course, the lighter tan tones that you see highlighting a lot of the scales and like the osteoderm-like scales, and even up in the frill and stuff. He's also added nice bits of realism like gloss coats for the horns and the nails, and of course the eyes and everything, and just generally added enough coloration that it has a lifelike and realistic look. And like I said, it's just so exciting to have a more high-quality version, a more realistic take on a Stegoceratops to now enter into my collection, because it's just something that you don't really see. I'm not really sure why. Like, I guess maybe just people don't, when they're creating models, think about creating that many hybrids unless it's the more popular ones, like the Indominus or the Indoraptor or Scorpius Rex and stuff like that, because of course those were like the leaders of the films and shows that they were a part of, but lesser-known hybrids like this just seem to get neglected often, so it's super cool to now have one created again by Lulu's Customs and Classics. So if you are interested in grabbing one of these, I will include a link in the description to the eBay store for Lulu's Customs and Classics. I'm not positive if this one is going to be up right away, because again, it's going to be a different size when he does officially release it, but definitely check the links in the description to make sure, because it may already be live the day that I put this review up, because of course I'm filming the review in advance, so we'll see, I guess. Make sure you check the links either way in the description to go pick up either this or anything else from Lulu's Customs and Classics, and of course, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.